Goedenavond. Vanavond brengt Ministerie Media een programma over spiritualiteit. We praten met twee Amerikanen. De een heet Ram Dass en de ander heet Huston Smith. Beiden houden zich bezig met religie. De een met de meer klassieke vormen en de andere met de dingen die we tegenwoordig wel New Age noemen. Dat zijn de oude religies uit het oosten, maar met een vleugje Amerikaanse nieuwe tijdsdenken. We praten eerst met Huston Smith. Hij is professor in Berkeley, maakt televisieprogramma's over religie en ze heeft een heleboel boeken geschreven. Zijn laatste boeken gaan met name over de relatie met de Amerikaanse Indianen en wat zij onder spiritualiteit verstaan. Deze gesprekken vonden plaats in Berlijn, waar een nieuw initiatief, de Vredesuniversiteit, in september 1995 van start ging.
Peace and religion. Your field is religion, comparative religion.
Comparative religion.
But you still say you are an Orthodox Christian.
I was born into the Christian faith. My parents were missionaries in China, and in all my studies of the other tradition, I have not found any that was superior to the faith that I was born in.
Orthodox Christian, as you call it. For me, for you looking at the world of religion, it feels like you're looking from the inside out. Is that correct?
I would say that that is correct. I was born into a religious home. My parents were Methodist missionaries, Protestant missionaries in China. And for me, we were the only Westerners in the town where I grew up. For me, the experience was altogether positive. Now, many of my students, I call them wounded Christians or wounded Jews because their experience with the church was not good, and it set them off, put their teeth on edge, you might say. But mine was very different. It was altogether positive. What seems to come through to the wounded Christians or the wounded Jews is dogmatism, and we have the truth and nobody else does, and moralism, don't do this, don't do this, and so on. And that turns them against it. But for me, what came through was that we were in good hands, and in gratitude for that, we should bear one another's burdens. We should help each other. And in all my circlings of the globe, looking into the other major faiths of the world, I have not found anything which in simplified form contradicts that or is better than that. And therefore, naturally, I have just stayed in the tradition into which I was born. However, I'd be the last one to claim that there is anything within that tradition which is superior to the other enduring, as I like to call them, wisdom traditions of the world.
So these are all languages to talk to God.
True, they are the classical languages of the human spirit. That's a good, I'm glad you brought in the word language. Exactly that.
Do you think the new language of cyberspace, where people communicate with each other through the computer and with the computer, is also a way to God?
Well, when the wireless was first invented, I think H.G. Wells it was who said, "Isn't it ironic that just at the time when we can talk with anyone around the world, we find ourselves with nothing to say?" And I think that is a very good point because it stresses and underlines the fact that technology is only a means. It has nothing to do with content. So cyberspace and these communications, instant communications all around the world, super highways, things like that, are only vehicles. Have we anything to put into those vehicles to transport? That is the question.
That is actually the question with the internet, with all this World Wide Web, global library. What is on it?
I'm very glad we're touching on this, because my next book actually will be on the Native American church in the United States. So
what we call the Indians here.
Indians, yes.
Okay.
And so I've spent the last year with the Indians and working and writing for this book, which will be out in October. And in the course of doing that, I learned something, I saw something which had not occurred to me. That is that I had always thought that the tribal, exclusively oral people who do not have writing, that they were somehow inferior, because we speak as we do now, but we also have writing. And so we have everything they have and more. I have come to think differently. I have come to see that writing adds to speaking. We know about that. To have the cumulative written record of the human race is very enriching. So it does add, but what I had not seen before, it also subtracts. Now, what does it take away? And the answer is the knowledge of what is important. Now, let me make that point in this way. If we imagine a tribal group, no writing, around their campfire at night, everything those people have learned through their ancestors who learned it through trial and error, everything the tribe knows is in the heads of the people around the campfire. Don't you know that they would be constantly rehearsing what is important, what herbs have medicinal value, and also the great myths that their ancestors handed down that gave them the sense of the purpose of life and the meaning of life would always be in focus, and trivia would just die out like natural selection, because there's just not room for trivia. Now contrast that with my library that serves me. The University of California Library is one of the great library systems in the world. But when I go through interlibrary loan, it locks in with other systems, and as they told me when I went on the first orienting tour, when you come to this library looking for a book, think it's here. It may take us a little while to find it, but it's here, and that's virtually true. But if I go into the elevator onto the 5th floor, I may say signs, chemistry here, history here, literature here, but where is the sign that reads importance? What is important?
Wisdom.
Or wisdom. Very good. Much less wisdom. No, it's more like, well, good luck, folks. Here it all is. See, what I'm talking about is information overload. So we've never been so informed. Humanity has never been so informed and more confused as to what is important, because a book is a book, and it can be trashed, but it's still cataloged.
Well, what I say is there's a difference between data and information. And data only becomes information if the bit bites. If a bit bites, which means changes something, then it becomes information. If it's a data mountain, what can we do with it? We can look at it and...
Yeah, but we can't stop with information. We've got now 4 things. We've got data, we've got information, we've got knowledge, we've got wisdom. T.S. Eliot said it in 2 lines. Where is the knowledge that is lost in information? Where is the wisdom that is lost in knowledge?
I wrote, wisdom is not known, but feeling the truth.
Both. I don't think it's an either or. You're right in saying that if it's just barren, and then it's just wheel spinning of the neurons and so on.
Yeah,
so there must be feeling, but there must be knowing too, because feeling, if you leave it at that, it is only sentiment. It may be a high, an emotional high, or something like that. But then we have to have knowledge to discriminate between whether our feelings are appropriate or we're just on some kind of a jag, blissed out on cloud nine, you know, sitting around thinking, oh, I am so holy, enlightened, and noble, leaving other people to do the dishes.
You have seen many religions lately, so shamanistic traditions, because native Indian is shamanistic.
Yeah.
When I went to school, they were told as well, we have Christianity, and then we have somewhere Buddhism and Islam, and then really animistic, that is that...
Oh no, that's entirely false. That's entirely false. I call them collectively the primal religions because they came first. Like you, in my education, they were called the primitive religion, but primitive is a pejorative, like they are the childhood of the human race and we're so mature and advanced and so on. That's altogether wrong. It's a trade-off. I mean, they had things that we have lost. And then, to be fair, we have added some things that they did not have. But to claim that in any way the religion of tribal peoples is inferior to the so-called historical religions that have written text and a cumulative tradition, that is altogether wrong. And one of the hopeful things in our times is at least we now see that, which we did not see before.
Yeah, more people are looking into Indian rituals, honoring the earth. There's a whole revival of that feeling.
They had a passion and reverence for human personality and for the web of life and our connectedness with the earth, which we just look back on almost now with nostalgia, given our ecological crisis.
But that was an internalized web. They were part of their environment.
Absolutely.
And we now talk about the web as being the matrix of the cyberspace, which is an externalized thing.
A very useful distinction. I'm glad you brought that out. I didn't know that the web was used also in cyberspace.
Yeah, they call it the World Wide Web.
Yes.
It's actually copyright.
That's a kind of an artificial, superimposed on the natural web.
Well, Terence McKenna and Tim Leary said that technology has given us an opportunity to look in someone else's mind, like the shamanic traditions. They kept everything in. It was an internal. It was the heart and the memory were one. Now we live in a society where the memory is externalized, and we can look into what another person thinks by way of movies, by way of writing, by way of virtual reality. So we have an opportunity to see what lives in the other person's mind.
I am not persuaded. For one thing, it remains impossible to look into another person's heart. I happen to have been fortunate in my marriage, the usual ups and downs of course, but after 55 years we're still together. And one of the things that frustrates me is that I will live out my life and I will never be able to get inside her head. I would give a world to know what life looked like, what it felt like to her, but it is impossible to look into another person's heart, and technology has, well, it's true that with profound movies and so on, but we always had profound novels, and even before writing, we had a current of storytelling, and they would be about other people too. So we have quantitatively more capacity in that way, but qualitatively, I'm not sure that we see any improvement.
Now, some tribal cultures, they use things like peyote or ayahuasca or other drugs.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that they do this to feel the heart of the other people.
I do not think so. You mentioned Timothy Leary, and I was very close to him for 3 years because I was teaching at MIT while he was at Harvard. Quickly add, this was when those substances were not only legal, they had not been classified as illegal, but they were even respectable because for 3 years there was official research on these substances at Harvard, and because many of the subjects were getting mystical experiences and they didn't know anything about that, they turned to somebody who studied these things, and so I was with them. And during that period I had a number of sessions, and they're extraordinary, but as far as accurately seeing into another person's mind, I do not think that they have that capacity, because you can be faked out, as they say. You may think you see exactly, and two people are right together. I've had that experience too. And then afterwards you compare notes, and they were on different planets.
Yes, but that is part of the Western tradition of psychedelics. What I feel is that the tradition where it's taken as a group, as the Indians do, and I've taken ayahuasca in such a setting, that you have much more of a feeling of entering a collective consciousness, and the borders, the separations between people go down a little bit, at least.
I would not deny that. I too, in the course in this last year, writing this book on the Native American church to defend their religious freedom. You may know in the United States in 1990, in the most horrendous, I think, decision the Supreme Court ever made, they stripped these people of their constitutional right.
And this was specifically about the peyote they took?
About the peyote, because their drug is peyote, their sacrament, I won't say, their sacrament is peyote, which it is impossible to get addicted to, and not even a misdemeanor has ever been traced to the use, but they declare it illegal. Whereas the sacrament of the dominant religion, the white religion, Christianity, is alcohol, which is devastating in its the sorrow it can cause, and addiction can occur very easily. But because that's our sacrament, why then it is legal, but your sacrament, which can do no damage of this kind, it's absolutely horrendous. I threw that in because in the course of writing this book, I had 4 all-night vigils in the teepees with the members of this church. And, but I did not experience that. I experienced a very, very profound and deep feeling of oneness, but I did not experience as though I were inside their consciousness, their skulls in any way. It was just this very
feeling
of oneness, of course, is very great, very great.
Would you relate that to the mystical experience of St. Anthony? mystical experiences of St. Anthony and, you know, all the saints through the history?
Well, I'm sure that it's in the same group. No, not all mystical experiences are identical, of course. They have various shades and colors and nuances and so on. But in terms of being in the basic mold of classic mystical experience, I have no question.
One of the other people that really stimulated me was Brother David.
Oh, a very dear friend of mine.
Yes.
He gave me a little rosary once, 10 olive, carved out of olive wood from the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem by some Catholic nun, and 10 small beads and 3 larger ones for the Trinity. And it's one of my prized possessions. He's a dear man, yes.
But both of you remained in their original
Yeah, I think
religion.
that's a natural thing to do, and not inevitable, because if you're a wounded Christian, well, then you'll never be able to feel comfortable right in it, and it's better you just seek help.
When you say wounded, do you feel that this is like when parents or the church treats you with the authority of the church, but really not because of a religion or a spiritual thing?
Yes, I think it's something like that, yeah. And it's difficult, one has to view it case by case, because there are people who are rebels. Timothy Leary was a rebel. He is the Irish element in him is very strong, but he's not going to be in the church. He's going to rebel, just like he rebelled in high school and college and at Harvard.
Tell me a little bit more about Tim, because you know Tim has he's very ill.
Well, not so. Well, I know his exact age. He's 75. I saw him recently because I went to he was coming through Berkeley to give a book reading, and so I went. I hadn't seen him for a number of years, but the manager of the bookstore recognized me and says, "You have to introduce Tim Leary to the group." And so when they told Tim Leary there, he said, "Well, Huston can introduce me after I introduce him." So it was, as always, it's lively around him. And I have just very mixed feelings. There were those 3 years of very great closeness as we were engaged in what at that point was a very serious inquiry in a very strange area. But then we came to the parting of the ways, because he turned out to be a rebel, and I hope I'm a reformer, and he split with the university, walked out on it. I stayed within it, and he went for a free lifestyle, whereas I was committed to a monogamous marriage, and so we parted the ways, but I still have great affection. But it is sad, because his mind has been, the term is really fried by these substances, so much, and his attention span is now his body is haggard.
Well, maybe that is because he's ill at the moment, but I've known him for about 6 years pretty well. And
6 or, yeah.
Yeah, so I only know him, and I've always been amazed about his warmth. You've been at his house, you've seen him privately, not on stage, and he is one of those people that I always admire for warm. So I'm sorry to hear this. Okay. A last question about peace. We've had these meetings like this, Art and Science, 4 years ago in Amsterdam. What is actually happening with?
Well, this, you may not be pleased with my answer, but I take my stand with the world's wisdom traditions. That is why I have poured my life into studying them. And I think that in terms of their view of ultimate reality and how individual lives can best be comported or live in the light of that reality, I see nothing in modernity that equals their wisdom, and their wisdom also is validated by the fact that they, in their general terms, came up with the same answers independently. Now, they all say, and I say, speaking for them, it is a mistake to think that this world will ever be turned into paradise. As Ram Dass says, he's here at this, and he says so many things so pungently. He said, the third grade is always the third grade. It never becomes the fourth grade. People move through it. And this world, human history, is the third grade. Now I think there are many points in the New Age, there are kind of openness and intensity and spirit that I relish. But I think they are trying to turn the third grade into the fourth grade, and they get constantly frustrated.
When you say third and fourth, you mean in the Gurdjieff sense of levels?
No.
In school?
No, not the fourth way, not that. No, but in progress. That we're going to realize peace and harmony here in human history. Now it sounds pessimistic to say I'm not confident that that will happen, but it's not pessimistic if you take the classical wisdom traditions, because they deny that this material world is the only world. There are other worlds, and there you do find paradise, and beyond paradise, the absolute one, which is Satchit Ananda. Knowledge.
I thought about it myself in the sense that take the Bhagavad Gita.
This is what he said. The greatest gift one can ever learn is just to love and be loved in return.
All right.
Spirit is concerned, but this particular material life is like a scrimmage field in which you can build muscle and you can build skills and that kind of thing, but you're never going to take the hard knocks out of a scrimmage field, or it's no longer a scrimmage field. And that's what this life is. So Eliot, again, T.S. Eliot said, ours is the effort. The rest is not our business. So the International Peace University is our effort, and we must do it. Otherwise, we cave in internally and do not live up to the challenges of our time. But as to whether we're getting anywhere, it always seems to be a trade-off. Progress in some areas and then slipping in others. Thank you.
Dankjewel, Lijn.
Let's see. Where there were deserts, I saw fountains, and like cream, the waters rise, and we strolled there together with none to laugh nor criticize. And the leopard and the lamb lay together, truly bound. I was hoping, in my hoping, to recall what I had found. I was dreaming, in my dreaming, God knows, a pure view. And as I wake up from my sleeping, I repeat my dream to you, that the people have the power. The people have the power.
Na een kleine onderbreking voor een gedicht van Patti Smith, wat ze op de opening van de Vredesuniversiteit ook heeft voorgedragen, The People Have the Power, gaan we verder met Ram Dass. Ram Dass is een Amerikaan die in de jaren 60, eind van de jaren 60 betrokken is geweest bij LSD-research, samen met zijn collega Tim Leary, maar daarna in de ban is geraakt van Oosterse wijsheid. Hij volgde een guru uit India en veranderde zijn naam in Ram Dass. Hij reist over de hele wereld en vertelt aan mensen over zijn ervaringen en is een van de teachers, zoals de Amerikanen dat noemen.
I've gotten very, after years of being an institutional player, I've gotten very, I've lost interest in it as much because it feels like no matter how high the idealism is that brings it together, it very quickly degenerates into kind of third chakra, power, ego, social structures, and protecting oneself and so on. And without either a teacher or some formula for overriding that, some real contract to, like satsang or sangha, some form to override that, it ends up where everybody protects their space. And I've been in a lot of social structures now, and I'm getting to the point where I really say no more than I say yes to being part of things. Because I realize that we aren't really ready to be part of something without a lot of consciousness. I mean, I'm in study groups, I'm in wisdom groups, they call them, you know, groups of extraordinary people in America that come together once every 6 months. We have a group called the No Name Group. We come together for 3 days. But the willingness of that group to really work on themselves in order to be capable of having a few minutes of consciousness together is not great. And I realize that isn't the license. I don't have the license to say you're all a bunch of lazy slobs, you know, you get to it.
Yeah, well, I was initiated a Lakota water bearer at some time, but anyway, there was a big party and they needed to do a ritual and there was no one there, so I got the lowest grade as a Lakota and I got dressed up and I felt like a chief, and I was the chief of the day. And then I learned that, you know, the main task of a chief is, of a leader is not to lead, it's a lead in not leading.
Exactly. Exactly. So
I got the idea of a war chief who's dressed up,
yeah,
a big guy. And there's the peace chief who lives at the end of the village and he's the poorest guy in town.
Yeah.
He can do some rituals,
nice. Exactly right.
and he serves.
Yes.
He's the one who really takes, he's the heart of the society.
Yeah.
Could we teach people to do that, to become traditional leaders in a way that maybe kings were brought up, good kings were brought up in an attitude of service?
Can you shift the culture from third to fourth chakra, from the power of the separate individual to a role within the collective? And that role can be a very humble role. It's very tricky when you've juiced up a certain kind of worldly power so much, and you play it here with, you know, who's on stage and who isn't on stage and all of that. It's very hard.
Well, there were structures in the past, like kings in England. They got a job for 3 years and then they were killed and dumped in the bogs. That was the idea. You could become the leader, but
but those leaders weren't peace leaders. The English kings were not peace leaders. Come on.
At one time I said, for politicians, I would only like people who are HIV positive.
Yeah.
Do you think that would change the world?
I think it is interesting. I think it definitely takes them out of a very narrow dimension of reality. And because I work so much in the HIV positive world, I would say that it has changed the subcultures in which it has entered very, very dramatically. The gay community, not the needle users so much because they're living in another reality a little more, but certainly the gay community has developed a tremendously deep compassion from that,
and a new integrity,
and a new sense of perspective that gives. And I think Tim's getting that perspective now as he approaches death. Yeah, I would love that. I mean, I don't want to kill off well, I'm not sure about that, but
Well, it comes.
it comes anyway.
It comes anyway, so we better.
And so one of the things I'm going to be interviewing people at the Gorbachev meeting. I'm having a room like this and interviewing them about their personal future. Like, what do they do with their age now? Like, what does Margaret Thatcher do as she gets older and older? It's interesting. Did they think about now transitioning from worldly power into another kind of leadership or another kind of participation?
Yesterday there was a woman who said she just turned 50, and she said, I had my birthday party last week and I had to think hard and deep about who am I going to invite on my 50th birthday? Ex-lovers, lovers, friends, business associates, what kind of people? I think to ask that question of someone who turned 70 or 80 is interesting.
Exactly.
Who would you like to have at your birthday party?
Socrates, Heraclitus, Krishna,
yes.
Buddha.
You would be on your knees all the time, wouldn't you?
No, they're just the mishpacha, they're just the family. We just hang out together.
But if you had a choice of a birthday party in this life, who would you invite?
See, my predicament is that the kind of consciousness I work with is making the major experiment in my life, of my heart, the one of seeing the beloved in all forms.
I was going to say that. You pick 15 people on the street,
and
that would be it.
It's
Yes.
tricky. It's very tricky. It's very tricky.
It's true.
Because people think that because some of them are around me more than others, that they're my special friends. And I don't have any special friends. And it's a very hard thing to communicate to people. They don't understand that because they just assume
Monks too.
the time and space are measures of specialness. And to me, they're measures of function, not of specialness.
I agree. I have this center in Amsterdam, and once in a while people walk in and we put over the door, you are welcome. We are all one. Or you are not alone, we are all one. And I found that the people that walk in are amazing. Sufi masters, just people off the street that turn out. Maybe they had a reason to come or whatever, but it's amazing. And the musicians that come on. So people ask me, do you have a program? Do you have an idea? We don't have an idea. It will happen. We're open to whatever comes, and that's amazing. And,
but you see how delicate that is from an economic position to keep it stable.
Oh, people say you're crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy because
but it's a different kind of a social structure. It's an open, permeable social structure, and that one is not an efficient social structure. And the cost of efficiency
I don't know.
has been incredibly high in our society.
But there was the old idea of a caravanserai. I mean, through the desert you had roads and then they crossed each other or whatever, and there was the caravan. You had to be there, you had to stay for 3 days, no longer. You were a guest for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And you meet. And it's like in life we have those places where we meet, and it's inevitable that we have a cup of coffee and we do things. I would like to have a place in cyberspace where people come.
That's very nice.
And do this.
Yeah, that's
not.
Baby said,
You
when I create a lecture or workshop or a setting, because I think of myself, I always introduce myself these days as Ram is the name of God, but Ram is also an acronym for rent a mouth. And you have rented my mouth to say to you what you already know, but we need to keep saying it to one another again and again. And I'm one of the people on the journey just like you are, and this is just the mouth that's saying it and the ears that are listening, but it's us talking to ourselves. And when the thing works, when it's true, the entire audience begins to feel like a connected, the quality of feeding of presence in their beings. And that's the feeding, it's not the information. I just say words to keep their minds quiet so that this other process
This is
can happen.
exactly, I was in Ireland and everybody, I'm sure that if you measured brainwaves, they all would go into the same quiet things,
Yeah.
filtering out
Yeah,
all the chit chat in
Yeah.
the mind. That was amazing that you do that, and you don't do it from the words, you do it from the heart or from
exactly.
some other chakra where you transfer this. It was amazing. So. And then Brother David was the day before after you, and he came in and said, "There's been too much talking here," and he did Viva Musica with all those people. Remember?
Yeah, yeah.
It was nice. And then we had a last day with a party where I started to dance because
Yeah.
nobody was allowed to dance.
Yes.
It was a great
Yeah,
thing there.
I thought Ireland was really good. I thought that was a strong gathering. See, that was a very powerful
There
gathering.
was trees there. You went to
Yeah.
a tree, and it was not a tree. It was a whole
I know it.
all of things around it, and you could see the elves in it. It was.
Yeah, I loved Ireland. That was my first introduction to Ireland, and I just loved
Did you go
it.
to the Macross Gardens?
Yes, I did.
Oh,
I think it's good. Yeah, yeah,
the house was not so good, but the gardens were like,
yeah, just quite beautiful.
yeah, it was strange. And we went into the village, and all the guys were drunk and poets, and the women were
Poets, yeah.
Oh, they were poets.
But it was so, you go into a restaurant, and I felt like there were real human beings in the restaurant dealing with me. You know, that I was like really, I don't feel that in most of the restaurants I go to in the West. I feel like I'm being treated as I'm a customer. I'm not us, I'm them. I'm in the mind, I'm a different category of the mind. And
Celtic people. Yeah, I found it an amazing thing. I found
they're
it
closer
also-
to the mystery. They stay
Yes.
closer to the mystery, don't they?
They're
I think it's the fog that does it, and the mist and the...
the Irish whiskey.
And the Irish
I don't
whiskey.
know, maybe there's not so much electricity.
Whatever it is.
Whatever
Whatever
it
it is.
worked. It was,
You can change all that with,
Yeah.
with the computer, don't worry.
Well, I don't want to change. Now, what I would like to change, the only observation about that conference I had was it was so much pathological. I mean, this is where Stan comes in with his followers, and
Yeah.
they think you need to be cured.
Yeah, yes,
Yes?
yes.
That's
Yeah.
not so nice. There was another group of people who said, "Hey,
Yeah.
you're okay."
Yep. It's the same with the aging world I'm working in now. Gerontology sees it as a problem. I don't think aging is a problem. I think it's
It's a
fine.
gift. It's
I'm not
fine.
complaining.
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay.
Okay.
We get it.
A pleasure.